Hey everyone, and welcome back to the EdgeVerse Techcast. Again, this is your go-to place where you go to get everything related to NXP software, tools, and enablement. Everything's tailored for the NXP processors and microcontrollers that you may be evaluating for your next design. I'm your co-host, Kyle Dando. Today we're getting into something that sits right at the start of every one of your designs. Before you code, it's before the board gets there. It's even before the prototype.
And I'm Bridgette Stone, your other co-host. Today, we're talking about how you go from idea to something real without getting stuck in that blank page phase, which we all know a little too well.
Exactly, Bridgette. You know, I have often been accused of having that blank page look. So to help everyone else avoid looking like that, today we're going to dive into NXP's new block diagram designer. This tool is built to help engineers move from concept to design faster, with a lot less of those blank stares.
And to help break it all down, we're joined by someone who's been right in the middle of bringing this experience to life. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm glad to be here. So my name is Rebecca Phillips, and I am part of the digital online experience team here at NXP.com. And guys asked me to tell you a fun fact about myself. So let me give you one quick fun fact. Yeah. So I have been a mentor for First Robotics teams, so FRC teams, for over 15 years. And my current team that I'm with is FRC 2583 Orange Dynamite, and they are currently in Houston at World Championships. So I'm super excited watching them on the internet, and go Orange Dynamite.
All right, we're rooting for Orange Dynamite as well. And I think that's officially the coolest intro we've had in a while on the show.
I agree, Bridgette. First Robotics, that's very close to my own heart, Rebecca. Unfortunately, it's been about 15 years, but I did dabble in the First Robotics program. Small tangent.
15 years. Let me do that math, Kyle. Hang on.
Yeah.
Okay, go.
Yeah, I was 15 years old. But a story related to that is I once had the privilege to hear Dean Kamen speak. You mentioned that you've actually met Dean.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's the founder of First. He's inspired so many people with his original Segway invention. And now he's inspiring all these new engineers with robotics. Personally, Rebecca, it's so important that you're volunteering to lead and inspire this next generation of engineers.
One of my favorite things. It's really cool. I enjoy doing it.
Yeah, and I think it works perfectly in the topic we're going to talk about, which is the block diagrams. What you're doing with those young students is really what the block diagram does. It gets people started. They're very intelligent and they need some direction. I don't want to jump into our episode so quickly, but I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today.
Awesome.
So, Rebecca, let's imagine you're talking to your robotics team at Westwood High School in Austin, Texas. All the students are listening intently. Explain to this captive audience what the new block diagram designer is.
So I would say everybody likes to play with Legos, right? Legos are so much fun. And the block diagram designer is a lot like that experience. However, instead of taking plastic blocks, putting them together to build some sort of idea or solution, what we're doing is taking electronic components visualized online, and we're putting those together to build an end solution. That's where the block diagram designer actually comes into play. It helps engineers set up those functional pieces and connect them together to get their design kickstarted.
So slightly more expensive Legos. And instead of starting from scratch, you're starting with structure.
Yeah, they're a little more expensive than Legos. The tool is really designed to help reduce the amount of effort that engineers have to put into designing an end solution. It puts all of those pieces together in one central location and allows engineers to start to visualize what that end design is going to look like using actual components and design rules to help them in that creation.
Well, that's an excellent explanation. I'm sure your students are dropping their Legos and jumping on the web to look at the block diagram designer. But let's step back before we go into further details of the block diagram designer. Rebecca, you mentioned your larger responsibility is the customer journey at NXP. With the block diagram designer getting them engaged, what are some other things that you're working on improving the customer experience?
So at NXP, we're always trying to evolve when it comes to NXP.com. We're always making sure that we keep the customer at the center of what we do and trying to improve that experience. So you see tools like the block diagram designer coming into play. We're always trying to elevate that relevant content, making sure that online users are getting content when they need it and where they need it, making sure that things are easy to find and we connect everything together. We see that with Application Code Hub, the Expansion Board Hub, all of those things, making sure all of that integration is there. So when you're in your design journey as an engineer, things are right there at your fingertips, and we're trying to minimize the time that you're looking around trying to find everything. We want to put it right where you need it, when you need it. So if you zoom out and you look at what we're really talking about, it again is that content where engineers need it. And that block diagram designer is the perfect fit for that. It puts it right in the middle of your design journey and gives you everything you need right in one central location.
That's perfect. That's where you and I have started to work together, because I've been working with the App Code Hub and some of these design tools. You're helping my team get that to the customer when they need it. I really appreciate your work that you're doing, and I'm excited about this block diagram tool providing more of the content that my team works on.
Well, thank you. And it's a pleasure to work with you, Kyle.
Oh.
Aw.
Well, back to the star of our episode, the block diagram designer. Rebecca, if you had to pick just 3 features engineers will absolutely love, what would make the list?
Ooh, I only get to pick 3, so let me be strategic on what I'm going to pick. First, I'm going to start with the fact that these are customizable block diagrams, but there's also reusable templates. So it's really cool. When you get to the block diagram designer on nxp.com, you have options of how you're going to engage with the tool. We have already created application templates based on our key applications that you find on nxp.com. You can start there and playing with it, moving things around, swapping out microcontrollers for other ones, things like that. Or you can start with, like I said earlier, a blank piece of paper. You already know what you're designing or what you've been asked to design. And you can start with that blank sheet and say, okay, here's what I need. How do I make all of these things fit together? So that would be number 1.
So that's a blank page, not a blank stare. Let's just to
Correct.
clarify. Okay.
Very good point. Very good point. The second I would say is that it assists you in your component selection. It knows what components are going to actually work together. It has, based on either the guardrails that you have set, and you said these are the requirements when you set up that template, or based on the components that you've already picked, which ones are going to work well together. Like if we go back to that Lego example, right? You've got certain Legos that'll click together and other ones that won't. Third, I would say that you can actually output your design into industry standard EDA tools. This is huge, right? You can output this into Eagle, Altium, Autodesk, all of those key tools that you already have today and that you're using. You can output your block diagram into those, and that gets you, again, kickstarted just that much faster when you're trying to get to that end solution.
This is really fascinating. And while thinking about this, I'm also thinking about where the data is coming from. Can you go into a little bit of detail about how this data is being integrated to allow the block diagram designer to provide all this value? What resources are part of the block diagram designer, or I'm going to start calling it BDD for short, knowledge base?
Awesome. That's a great question. So the block diagram designer uses what is called a CUBOS, and a CUBOS is an electronic representation of a component. To create a CUBOS, the datasheet, schematics, pinout, all of that key data is actually used to create that. The knowledge behind the block diagram designer is all technical documentation. This isn't we took a marketing presentation and we put it in there. These are actual design files. Exactly what the engineer is using on a day-to-day basis to create their design is what's going in to create all of the data that you see within the block diagram designer. So not only are there NXP components within the block diagram designer, we have those associated and needed non-NXP components in there too. And they are all, again, created with that key technical documentation, those CAD models, those data sheets, all of that is in there to create a CUBOS, and that content's already in the system as a designer, I can also go in and say, hey, I'm using this part. Where's the data sheet? It's right there with your associated component. There's also governance that's included in here. There's a layer of content behind this tool that says these components will work together, these won't. That guidance and governance is there to help you get started so much faster in your design. If you think about it and you think about what's in here, it's knowledge. It's all a giant knowledge base in one central location. It's a combination of part numbers, data sheets, logic, CAD files, schematics, BOMs, other documents. It's all in one central location for you.
And you and the sales team are working with us on our tools too. So the configuration tool,
Exactly.
yeah, all the data that the engineers had to go to different areas to get, the CUBOS is actually gathering that. The config tool pin out information. They're even looking at the data sheet and the configuration tool to determine what pins have which power voltages on them. You're right, Rebecca. This is just pulling in all the database that used to be in different locations. When you use the block diagram designer tool, it really is a way to organize your thoughts and pull in all that. It can be a starting point, and then you can push into all those documents. It's a really powerful tool. We're trying to convince everybody on this episode today they should definitely take a look at it and evaluate it for themselves.
Absolutely. Your team's been crucial in getting this started. So thank you, Kyle. And I'm hoping we don't have to convince users too much. I hope they go over and see the value really fast.
I think so. If they can get past my voice, then they can probably go and evaluate the tool. So
I love it.
All right. Let's talk about the future. So this tool was just launched. Can you share some of the things that are going to be coming out in the future?
Yeah, so this isn't the final look for Block Diagram Designer. There is a lot coming in the future. If you happen to be at Embedded World, gosh, I guess it's been 2 months now. It feels like it was just yesterday. If you happen to have been at Embedded World, you saw a sneak peek of what's coming. There is an AI assistant within the tool. The tool is powered behind us by a team called Celis, and we're looking forward to releasing the AI assistant. You'll be able to go in and type in a question and say, hey, I'm trying to create a smart thermostat. And it's going to help you. It's going to get you started on that, get you kickstarted even faster. So we're super excited for that. So stay tuned. That's around the corner.
That's great.
Very cool. And last question, we're coming to the end here, Rebecca, and it should be the most rewarding. How can customers get started? What do you suggest for an engineer that wants to get the best experience with this new block diagram designer?
So the easiest way to get started is to head over to nxp.com, and you're going to want to make sure that you're logged in and make sure that you've got that NXP account created, and you're going to find that block diagram experience. You can either navigate from the homepage to designer, and you'll find a link that says find and build your next project, or there's a URL. You can go directly to nxp.com/block-diagram-designer, and you can get started right away. And like we've said, this is a great way to kickstart your design and have everything in one location right there at your fingertips.
Awesome. All right, let's bring it home. Rebecca, thank you very much for giving us a great outline of the new block diagram designer tool. It's really important for our listeners to evaluate this tool because, as you mentioned, it's pulling all these different locations of data into a clear diagram where they can push in and find the information. It's sort of like you are with the first robotics team, where you work with those young students. You're giving them the instruction and the diagram of what they should do, but then they ultimately have to execute. That's what the block diagram designer tool is going to help engineers do. Move quicker, get from that concept to their design a lot faster.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. It was great to be able to talk about the block diagram designer. This was super fun, y'all. And I hope you'll have me back. There's new and cool features around the corner, and I'd love to come back and talk about it and possibly other things that we're doing on the website.
We will definitely be taking you up on that, Rebecca. So thank you. And to our listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a conversation. And if there's a topic you want us to cover, please send a note our way.
And until next time, everyone, keep innovating. Check out the block diagram designer tool. Maybe design the next generation thermostat that Rebecca mentioned.
And we'll catch you on the next EdgeVerse Techcast.